Chapter 8:14. This Nightfall team has serious issues. A few seconds later, other new recruits who heard the shouting rushed over. What happened? Did you find the members of the Nightfall team? Where are they? Qian Duo sat on the ground in terror, frantically crawling backward, pointing at the bushes behind him, his face pale. They killed someone. They killed someone. Upon hearing this, the expressions of the other recruits changed and they walked straight to the bushes. In the next moment their bodies jolted. How could this happen? Someone walked over to the corpse, bent down and confirmed, "It's definitely dead. It's Instructor Li, I recognize him." The faces of the other recruits turned extremely grim as they turned to Qian Duo. "Did you see who did it?" It was the Nightfall team. He was wearing a deep red cloak and holding a monk's mask in his left hand. Qian Duo stammered. "Are you talking nonsense? The Nightfall team is the 5th special team of the Great Xia. How could they kill? You must have seen it wrong." Someone among the recruits retorted. "No, he didn't see it wrong." Lu Yang, who had been silent, spoke up. "I can testify. I think we might as well assume that the two of them didn't see it wrong." At that moment, a man stepped forward from the crowd. "Based on the information we have now, I can think of 2 possibilities. The first possibility is that the Nightfall team has betrayed us and killed the instructors of this training camp." "Nonsense, why would they do that?" a recruit immediately countered. "That really doesn't make sense. I also think a special team wouldn't do such a thing." Once this viewpoint was expressed, it drew a lot of opposition. "Then if that's the case, only the second possibility remains." The man continued. "The second possibility is that the ones present in this training camp are not the real Nightfall team." "What does that mean?" "I mean some of them, or all of them, have been swapped out." The man spoke with certainty. "The entire Nightfall team wears masks and descends directly from the sky. It's impossible to determine their identities, right? Who can be sure that the ones under the masks are indeed the Nightfall members and not some evil individuals impersonating them?" "But Instructor Yuan said they are the Nightfall team." "After they landed, Instructor Yuan didn't see their faces, did he?" Everyone stood frozen in place. "But if that's the case, who would impersonate the Nightfall team? What is their purpose?" "I don't know what their purpose is, but..." The man paused and lowered his voice. "Perhaps you've heard of the ancient God Church?" Upon hearing these 4 words, everyone's hearts skipped a beat. The ancient God Church. This brother. One recruit stepped forward, looking curiously at the man who spoke. "May I ask, what is your name?" "Name?" The man shrugged. "I am Shin Qingzhu." "What did you say?" "A corpse of an instructor was found." In the dormitory area, nearly 100 recruits gathered together, and upon hearing this, shock appeared on their faces. "That's right." The recruit who had run over from the cafeteria to relay the news took a moment to catch his breath before continuing. "According to informed sources, this is likely an organization called the Ancient God Church, disguised as the Nightfall team, infiltrating the new recruit training camp." The faces of the other recruits immediately turned grim. "But why?" Someone among the recruits asked in confusion. "Even if the Ancient God Church really sent someone in, what is their purpose? This is just a new recruit training camp. There's nothing valuable here." "This, we are still unclear about. The informed sources are still analyzing and I believe there will be results soon." The recruit who relayed the news continued. "I came here to warn you that, given the current unclear situation, it's best to avoid conflict with the Nightfall team. It would be better for everyone to find a place to hide and wait until we clarify the situation before deciding." Rustling. Before he finished speaking, a faint sound came from above everyone's heads. Everyone froze and looked up at the ceiling. They had just begun searching the dormitory building and they were still on the 1st floor. The 2nd floor and above had not been searched yet. As soon as this strange sound appeared, it captured their attention. "What sound is that?" "I don't know. It sounds like insects crawling." "What insects crawl up the stairs?" "The sound can penetrate the floorboards." Let's go up and take a look." "Is that okay? Didn't we just say the situation is strange?" "What are you afraid of? Even if there are really people from the Ancient God Church mixed in, under the effect of the town ruins monument, they only have the pool realm. There are over 100 of us here. Are we still afraid of them?" "What you said makes sense." After discussing for a moment, Everyone gathered their spirits and stealthily made their way to the second floor of the dormitory building. They climbed the stairs to the second floor and were momentarily stunned when they saw the dormitory door standing at the stairway. Strange, why is this door here? Where's the corridor? The layout of the dormitory building wasn't like this before, right? What's going on? In confusion, they pushed open the dormitory door, and behind it was not the familiar dormitory but a vast hollow area resembling a nest. It was as if someone had disrupted the structure of the dormitory building and reorganized it. Although the exterior of the dormitory building had not changed, the internal space had been completely altered, with the original rooms arranged like a beehive, and in the central large hollow huge spider webs were attached. The webs were dense and spider silk floated down. The pale and sturdy strands of silk dangled, ensnaring and wrapping around corpses, slowly swaying in the dim hollow. The moment they saw those corpses, all the recruits' pupils constricted. Those were all instructors. At that moment, in the dim spider nest, a human-faced spider lying in the center of the web opened its crimson compound eyes, its jagged mandibles glinting coldly, making anyone who glanced at it shudder. Monster, monster. One recruit witnessing this scene collapsed to the ground. A monster killed them. Beside this human-faced spider, a figure draped in a deep red cloak slowly emerged, his Sun Wukong mask stained with some blood. One hand held a silver cube, while the other gently stroked the head of the menacing human-faced spider. He gazed at the recruits behind the door who were frozen in fear, his eyes glinting with a chilling light. "Ah," he whispered like a demon, "have you been discovered?" Chapter 8:15. The Plan of Nightfall. Outside the training camp. In the deep mountains, a young boy carrying a suitcase and holding a flashlight was struggling to crawl through the jungle. Sweat beaded on his forehead, continuously dripping down his cheeks to the ground. He lifted his head, gazing at the pitch-black night sky above, a look of confusion appearing in his eyes. Strange, how did it get dark all of a sudden? Lu Baoyu stared at the night sky for a long time, feeling an inexplicable sense of oppression beneath the dark veil, making him somewhat restless. He shook his head, quickly dismissing those chaotic thoughts, and stepped forward, climbing toward the highest point of the mountain. The mountain he was on was the closest to the training camp and also the highest and steepest. The key point of this mountain was that from its peak, one could clearly see the situation inside the training camp. After being rejected at the entrance of the training camp, Lu Baoyu did not choose to leave but instead took advantage of the chaos and climbed up the mountain from another direction. After several hours of trekking, he finally reached the summit of the mountain. Standing at the towering peak, drenched in sweat, Lu Baoyu took out an old-fashioned telescope from his pocket and looked toward the direction of the training camp. Lu Baoyu's brows furrowed slightly. Where did the instructors guarding the training camp go? There's no one stationed at the lookout tower. What's going on? Logically speaking, such an important place as the training camp should have robust military defenses around it. Since Lu Baoyu could think of climbing this mountain to spy on the camp, the enemy could certainly do the same. Therefore, the lookout towers in this area should have a nearly perfect field of vision with no blind spots. Yet, at this moment there was not a single person at those lookout towers. The entire training camp seemed empty, with only large groups of new recruits running around like headless flies. Lu Baoyu had no idea what was happening inside the training camp, but this situation was undoubtedly a great opportunity for him. "You can't stop me. If one attempt fails, I'll try again. If that fails, I'll try a third time," Lu Baoyu murmured to himself. "I must get in. I want to become a night watchman and then find him." A newfound determination appeared in Lu Baoyu's eyes. He measured the distance from the mountain peak to the training camp with his gaze and took a deep breath. He pushed off the ground with both feet and leaped down from the top of the mountain. The wind howled past his ears and his eyes burst with a crimson glow. A fierce and violent aura erupted from within him. At the same time, 6 dark red-winged shadows slowly unfurled behind him. He flapped his wings facing the raging wind and floated toward the direction of the training camp. Inside the training camp, in the hollow dormitory building, Lin Chia seemed to sense something and suddenly looked up at a certain point in the sky. This aura. Under the mask of Sun Wukong, his golden eyes uncontrollably brightened, like a pair of furnaces burning fiercely. The energy left by the seraphim within him was stirring. As if encountering an old enemy. "Lucifer." Lin Chia carefully sensed the aura for a moment, quickly recalling the image of the fallen angel Lucifer that had appeared out of nowhere 2 years ago over the misty sea. The aura that suddenly appeared now, although much weaker than what he sensed back then, so weak it could be ignored, was undoubtedly from a fallen angel. This kind of perception, rooted deep within his divine power, could not be mistaken. Clearly, this could not be Lucifer himself. After all, even if he had 10 times the courage, he wouldn't dare invade the Great Xia at such a time. Was it Lucifer's agent? Lin Chia pondered for a moment and instantly connected the appearance of this aura to the reason behind it. There was an agent of Lucifer in this training camp. Lin Chia's brows furrowed under his mask. Sensing Lin Chia's aura fluctuations, the new recruits who had been stunned at the door finally came to their senses, fear flashing in their eyes. The eerie emptiness, the grotesque spider, the terrifying man stroking the spider's head, and the corpses hanging around. This man could command the mysterious, and had killed all the instructors. Ah! Among the new recruits, some of the more timid ones were immediately paralyzed with fear, screaming in terror. Some turned and ran while others stood frozen in place, completely losing their ability to think. Only a small portion of them, with a glint of determination in their eyes, exchanged glances and charged forward with their weapons. What are you afraid of? With the town suppression monument suppressing him, he's at most at the pool realm. With so many of us, we can't possibly lose to just one of him, right? Let's go together. Kill this fake Nightfall. The instructors have all sacrificed. We won't survive much longer. Let's give it our all. Damn it, I'm going all out. Shouts erupted from the new recruits. Under extreme fear and pressure, they held nothing back, squeezing out every ounce of potential as they charged toward the direction of the man. With their shout, many of the recruits who had been frozen in place also snapped back to reality, hesitating for a moment before a fierce look appeared in their eyes. Among the many new recruits present, more than half chose to fight Lin Chia to the death. Seeing this scene, a smile appeared at the corner of Lin Chia's mouth beneath his mask. Good. This is the effect I wanted. Then let me see what tricks you rookies have up your sleeves. Lin Chia murmured to himself, calmly drawing white slasher from his waist as a lush green field spread out beneath his feet like a tide. Training camp. Underground. Don't say it, the Nightfall team really knows how to play this game effectively. In the central monitoring room, many instructors sat with their legs crossed in front of the screens, munching on sunflower seeds while eagerly watching the images from the hidden cameras. Using the oppressive feeling of that night and the tension of the environment, combined with props from the atmosphere team that can easily deceive, they can maximize the potential of these new recruits. At the same time, this extremely high-pressure environment allows us to assess each individual's ability to withstand stress. Brilliant, truly brilliant, another instructor applauded. Yeah, it was worth it for us to remove all internal and external defensive personnel to cooperate with this performance. Removing internal defenses is fine, but what about the lookout tower outside? Won't that cause problems? With the Nightfall team here, what could possibly go wrong? True. I think the most impressive one is still Shin Qingzhu. He blended in with the new recruits, stirring up fear and creating an atmosphere, perfectly controlling the timing. These new recruits are almost completely believing his nonsense. What do you know? This is called the self-cultivation of an undercover agent. But isn't the Nightfall team afraid of messing it up? One instructor voiced his concerns. After all, there are over 600 new recruits, and they are all in a state of fully unleashed potential. Although they have been dispersed, can they really ensure they won't be counterkilled by these recruits? Chapter 8:16, Fallen Angel Agent. A large number of new recruits, weapons in hand, surged in from the entrance, filled with a murderous aura as they charged toward the empty center. Dean, there are so many of them, I'm so scared. Zhu clung to the web, watching the new recruits whose eyes radiated killing intent, pitifully transmitting a message to Lin Chia. At that moment, a voice reached its ears. You don't need to participate in the battle. After I knock out the new recruits, you just need to use your web to bind them up immediately. Remember, tie them tightly and don't leave any traces. Okay. Zhu obediently returned to the center of the web. In the crowd, a figure draped in a deep red cloak stepped out of the void, directly arriving at the rear of the advancing new recruits. This position was quite delicate. Among the new recruits, the most spirited and confident in their combat abilities were all at the front, while those in the rear were mostly inspired by their morale and had only recently joined the attacking army, possessing slightly better strength and temperament. At this moment Lin Chia's sudden appearance startled them, causing a bit of panic. Meanwhile Lin Chia's right hand, which had been resting on the hilt of the Zhanbai sword, slowly drew the blade from its sheath. A snow-white arc of blade light radiated from Lin Chia, covering nearly all the new recruits around him without regard for distance. This sudden strike knocked out almost 70% of the new recruits, who collapsed to the ground like a tide. Of course, with the eyesight of these new recruits, they couldn't tell that Lin Chia had actually struck with the back of the blade. The few remaining new recruits, still dazed by the inexplicable scene before them, were suddenly ensnared by a torrent of spider silk descending from above, quickly wrapping around the unconscious recruits and suspending them in mid-air like corpses. To enhance the realism of Lin Chia's performance, Zhu even controlled the spider silk to seep out streaks of crimson blood. The remaining 20 or so new recruits were left dumbfounded. A single strike from the Pool realm, and over 60 new recruits were killed? Even if this was the fake Nightfall team, their strength was still outrageous, right? Lin Chia's strike was actually leveraging the advantages of the Huajin blade. Even if Lin Chia were merely at the Pool realm, he could still contend with ordinary Sea realm experts solely based on this Zhanbai sword. Of course, Lin Chia's strike was merely for show, to apply some pressure on the remaining recruits who truly had spirit and combat ability, reigniting their potential. He wouldn't resort to such cheating methods continuously. Otherwise, this assessment would lose its meaning. Lin Chia sheathed the Zhanbai sword and calmly gazed at the new recruits before him, the vast majority of whom were at the Lamp realm, with only 2 having broken through to the Pool realm. Regardless of their realm, they all looked at Lin Chia as if he were a monster. He sheathed his sword. Attack! One of the Pool realm new recruits shouted and charged forward, wielding a standard straight sword without a name, fiercely attacking Lin Chia. Not bad in temperament. Lin Chia evaluated in his heart. This time, Lin Chia did not use the Forbidden Ruins nor draw his sword. He merely took a gentle step back, effortlessly dodging the new recruit's attacks with his terrifying dynamic vision and rich combat experience. The new recruit swung his sword several times, not even grazing a single hair on Lin Chia's head. With a sudden stomp of his right foot, black steel snakes burst forth from the ground. Lin Chia let out a light exclamation, his mental energy instantly predicting the movements of these steel snakes. He lightly stepped on the ground, his figure floating away, and with a flick of his fingers, the steel snakes were enveloped in a shadowy hue. Absolute darkness invasion. These steel snakes were instantly seized by Lin Chia, binding the new recruit's body in return. With a casual backhand he sent the recruit into a Zhu's web, wrapping him up and suspending him. Seeing that Lin Chia truly hadn't drawn his sword and seemed to still have fighting strength, the remaining new recruits rushed forward all at once. In Lin Chia's eyes, 2 brilliant golden lights ignited. The power of the Seraph's divine might surged forth, causing the bodies of those new recruits to tremble, their movements becoming somewhat stiff. Although Lin Chia had suppressed his realm to the Pool level, even so, this stage of the Seraph's divine might could still exert tremendous pressure on enemies of the same realm. Not to mention that the vast majority of these new recruits were merely Lamp realm novices. This divine might directly disrupted the formation of the new recruits, creating a slight opening in the crowd. Lin Chia, empty-handed, darted into the fray like a ghost, moving with astonishing speed. Each time he approached a new recruit he would briefly engage them before knocking them out and pushing them into the web. In less than a minute, all 20 or so new recruits were eliminated, suspended by a Zhu's spider silk, becoming part of the many corpses. Beneath the endless spider silk bodies, Lin Chia, cloaked in deep red and wearing a mask, slowly turned his head, gazing at the new recruits who were frozen in place, dumbfounded. Ah! A few new recruits snapped back to reality, scrambling to their feet and using all their strength to flee into the distance after witnessing Lin Chia's slaughter. Lin Chia did not pursue them. These fleeing new recruits were also a crucial part of their plan. In the hollow shadows, Lin Chia's figure flickered and then vanished without a trace. Instructor Yuan. When he reappeared, Lin Chia had arrived at the underground monitoring center. Chia? What brings you here? Yuan Gang asked, somewhat puzzled by Lin Chia's sudden appearance. Can I see this year's new recruit list? The new recruit list? Sure, but why do you suddenly want to see that? As Yuan Gang spoke, he handed the file in his hand to Lin Chia. Is there a divine agent among this year's new recruits? Lin Chia asked as he took the file. There is actually. Who? Which deity's agent is he? His name is Lu Baoyu, the agent of the deity codenamed 004 Lucifer. However, he has been disqualified from participating in the new recruit training. Upon hearing the name Lu Baoyu, Lin Chia's hand paused. His name. As for the reason for disqualification, it's quite complicated. Yuan Gang sighed. This child, as a newly emerged divine agent, should have received absolute attention, but unfortunately, his father sacrificed himself in the recent battle of the Shenlong Pass. The Night Watchers have an unwritten rule. If a martyr's child is an only child, they cannot join the Night Watchers. Although the descendants of those who possess the forbidden ruins have a greater chance of awakening them, to ensure the continuation of the martyr's bloodline, we can only do this as a mark of respect for the martyr. They have already given their lives for the great Xia. Their children cannot be sacrificed again. Coincidentally, this child caused some trouble on his way to the capital, and we use this incident as a reason to disqualify him. Chapter 8:17. Position. At this moment, Lin Chia finally remembered where he had heard this name before. Lu Baoyu was the son of Lu Qiu, the temporary commander of the Shenlong Pass. At that time, if Lu Qiu had not used the ghostly powers to send messages outside, Shenlong Pass would have surely been breached, leading to a catastrophic disaster. He was the true savior of this calamity. When Lin Chia saw Lu Qiu's corpse on the outer wall, he had heard his companions mention that he had a rebellious son named Lu Baoyu. Lin Chia had thought that if he ever encountered Lu Qiu's descendants, he might be able to help them. However, he never expected that the next time he saw the name Lu Baoyu, it would be on the list of new recruits for the Night Watch. How did he come into contact with the Night Watch? Lin Chia asked in confusion. Did his father tell him about the Night Watch? No, Yuan Gang shook his head. You know the nature of the Night Watch's work. Before being transferred to Shenlong Pass, his father Lu Qiu had been stationed in other cities for many years. Because he was far from home and didn't know when he would sacrifice himself, he rarely had the chance to return. The last time he came home to see his wife and children was probably 3 years ago. This meant that after Lu Baoyu was born, he hardly saw his father, and his growing environment was not much different from that of a single-parent family. In his eyes, his father was a scumbag who abandoned his wife and children. He grew up harboring resentment towards his father, and as he entered his rebellious teenage years, his volatile personality led him to often do some outrageous things. For various reasons, he was expelled from school and looked down upon by relatives and friends. In a fit of anger, he secretly pried open his father's safe, intending to take some money and run away from home. It was during this act of prying that he discovered the Night Watch employment documents and other related contracts hidden in his father's home. After learning about the existence of the Night Watch, he took some money from home, along with Lu Qiu's documents and contracts, and ran away. Later, he somehow obtained an opportunity to become a representative of Lucifer, and because of this he came into contact with the Night Watch. Yuan Gang sighed and continued. Originally, when we conducted a background check, we found out that his father was a member of the Night Watch and did not plan to recruit him. However, his identity as a divine representative is too special. You know the current situation in Daxiao. We need his presence. After listening, Lin Chia nodded thoughtfully. But later you received news that Lu Qiu had sacrificed himself on the front lines, so you felt it was inappropriate to involve his son? That's the idea, Yuan Gang said helplessly, closing his eyes. This child always believes that as long as he joins the Night Watch, he will have the chance to find his father. But he doesn't know that just a few days ago his father had already died in battle. Our plan was to first revoke his qualification to become a member of the Night Watch this year, let him go home, and after he learns of his father's death, we would see what he wants to do. If he still decides to join the Night Watch, we will recruit him again into the new recruit training camp in 2 years. I understand, Lin Chia couldn't help but sigh. It seems this child has caused you quite a bit of trouble. Being responsible for every new recruit is my job. Otherwise, why would I be so busy every day? Yuan Gang said with a bitter smile. By the way, I haven't asked, why are you suddenly interested in divine representatives? I just sensed the aura of a fallen angel, so I was a bit puzzled. I see. After all, the one you represent is... Yuan Gang paused as if realizing something, his brow slightly furrowing. If I remember correctly, Michael and Lucifer are arch-enemies? Yes. No wonder. Will this have any impact on you? No, Lin Chia paused for a moment. At least not for now. Although Michael and Lucifer are arch-enemies, this is merely a personal relationship between the two. In terms of factions, both are neutral entities. Lucifer has always been suppressed by Michael beneath a volcano and has never posed a threat to Daxia, so Lucifer's representative is seen as just a representative in Daxia's eyes, without any threat. In Daxia's view, both Lin Chia and Lu Baoyu are representatives of neutral gods. But in each other's eyes, they carry the will of opposing deities, enemies rather than friends. Daxia would not eliminate a gifted representative due to the personal feud between the seraphim and the fallen angel, nor would it reject Lu Baoyu's inclusion based on Lin Chia's factional stance. Lin Chia did not know what kind of contract Lu Baoyu had signed with Lucifer, but he felt, perhaps the conditions offered by Lucifer were related to him. Lin Chia's heart was filled with mixed emotions. From his personal perspective, Lu Baoyu was undoubtedly a threatening enemy, and it would be best to take advantage of his current weakness and eliminate him with a single finger to prevent any future complications. But unfortunately, he was the son of the martyr Lu Qiu and a prospective new recruit of the Night Watch. Although he was not familiar with Lu Qiu and had only met him once and exchanged a few words, Lu Qiu had sacrificed his life to protect Daxia from a great calamity. Despite his weakness, he was a hero just like Zhao Kongqing, Chen Mai, and even Yi Fan. Would he go and kill Zhao Kongqing's son? Impossible, absolutely impossible. Even if Lu Baoyu was no longer a new recruit of the Night Watch, he could not bring himself to kill this child. How to deal with Lu Baoyu? Lin Chia still needed to think carefully. I understand, thank you, instructor. Lin Chia sighed and stepped outside. Inside the training camp, a group of new recruits was running quickly along the road, and terrified screams from other recruits echoed from various directions. The faces of these new recruits turned pale. What on earth is happening? Why is there screaming everywhere? I don't know. Isn't it just a competition? Why does it sound like a life-and-death crisis? Yeah, if you didn't know better, you'd think the enemy was already at the door. By the way, we've been running for so long, but why haven't we seen a single member of the Nightfall team? In the chaotic scene, 3 new recruits exchanged glances silently and huddled together. What's going on? This assessment is not what we expected. One seemingly very young recruit frowned. Why is the Nightfall team involved? That's normal. Another thin recruit glanced around furtively, ensuring no one was paying attention to them before continuing. After all, there are over 600 new recruits this time. It's difficult for the instructors to maintain order, so it's reasonable to send a special team to apply pressure. Don't be too sensitive. Yeah, didn't the mask team come last year too? A female recruit nodded in agreement. The young recruit hesitated for a moment. Will the Nightfall team's involvement affect our plans? Chapter 8:18. The Three Fists of Jelon. No, after the Town Ruins Monument is activated, no one's realm will exceed the Pool realm. We can blend in with the crowd, and as long as we seize the opportunity, we can definitely catch Nightfall and all the instructors off guard taking control of this training camp. As long as we can flatten this training camp and kill these 600 new recruits, the personnel flow of the Great Xia Night Watch will experience a break, making it impossible to allocate personnel effectively. The strength of the border war strongholds will be greatly diminished, and when the evil gods come, Great Xia will surely be unable to withstand it. The era of the dark gods is bound to arrive. Excitement flickered in the eyes of the lean new recruit. The other 2 also became excited. By the way, what about that one? Didn't we say that person has already infiltrated the training camp and will cooperate with us? The youthful recruit asked, as if recalling something. Lord Qianma is one of the ancient 3 gods of our ancient god church. His movements are always unpredictable. How could we possibly guess them? True, Lord Qianma should have already infiltrated the enemy's ranks, secretly observing our performance. We still have plenty of time before the baseline assessment ends. Let's proceed steadily, following this group of new recruits and looking for an opportunity to act. Okay. Training camp. Shooting range. Jalan, wearing the red child mask, sat bored on the rooftop of the shooting range, listening to the screams rising and falling around her, and yawned. Why hasn't anyone found me yet? I want to scare the little kids too. Jalan sighed in frustration. At that moment, a small group of new recruits, armed with knives and guns, excitedly rushed over from a distance, about 50 or 60 of them. The moment she saw them, Jalan's eyes lit up. She quickly climbed up from the rooftop, eager to jump down, but then seemed to remember something, coughed lightly twice, and quietly took out blood-colored thread and a collection of incredibly lifelike heads from her bag. Script. What was my character again? Holding the thread in one hand and the bloody heads in the other, Jalan stood there in confusion for a moment, clicked her tongue, put both down and pulled out a small notebook, flipping through it quickly. I'm a female demon who likes to string heads into a belt and wear it around my waist. A head belt? I need to string these props together with the thread first. Jalan immediately put the notebook away, took out the blood-colored thread, pinched the needle with one hand and the red thread with the other, widening her eyes as she tried hard to thread the line through the needle's tiny hole. However, after several attempts she failed each time. The tiny thread seemed to have a mind of its own, refusing to go through the needle's eye. As she watched the new recruits rush into the shooting range and start searching frantically, an anxious look appeared on Jalan's face. She quickly removed her red child mask, licked the tip of the red thread with her tongue and muttered while threading. That fat guy really, can't he prepare the props properly before giving them to me? Finally, Jalan managed to thread the red line through the needle and successfully strung all the heads into a belt. But then another problem arose. Her waist was too slim to tie the head belt around it. Seeing the new recruits about to reach the top floor, Jalan, in a moment of desperation, came up with a plan. She grabbed a training mat from the corner of the top floor and forcefully stuffed it into the deep blue hanfu under her cloak, hoping to increase her waist size enough to fit the head belt. At that moment, many figures quickly searched up the stairway on the top floor. Do you think there will be members of the Nightfall team here? I think there should be. I heard some noise on the rooftop when we were searching downstairs. Is that true? Everyone get ready for battle. The new recruits, armed with knives and guns and filled with fighting spirit, kicked open the door to the top floor. A gentle breeze swept across the top of the shooting range, and in the empty floor, a girl in a deep blue hanfu stood with her left hand holding a string of heads and her right hand clutching a training mat, gritting her teeth as she struggled to stuff the mat into her collar. Seeing the suddenly appearing new recruits, Jalan's movements froze. She was stunned. The new recruits were also stunned. The air fell into a dead silence. The new recruits swallowed hard, their gazes unconsciously drifting to the side, just in time to catch sight of the red child mask that Jalan had forgotten. Who is she? Boom. Jalan crushed the training mat in her hand, a terrifying aura erupted, and her black hair floated up on its own. She looked at the group of new recruits with a mix of shame and anger, determination flashing in her eyes. Sorry, Chia. I can't leave the new recruits here to create an atmosphere for you. Today not a single one of these new recruits can leave here conscious. Jalan's figure transformed into a blur, like a fierce blue beast, crashing into the bewildered crowd, her fair hand clenched into a fist, roaring as she struck at them. Not good. Everyone together. Before the leading new recruit could finish his sentence, Jalan's fist smashed into his forehead, and he rolled his eyes back, promptly fainting. The other new recruits quickly reacted, attacking Jalan with their guns and blades in a frenzy. However, no matter what kind of attack landed on the blue-clad girl, it left not a single mark. Jalan swiftly maneuvered among the new recruits, using all her strength, knocking one out with each punch, and the new recruits fell like a tide. At that moment, a seemingly unremarkable young man among the recruits suddenly erupted with a chilling glint in his eyes. An extremely cold energy manifested in his palm, seizing the opportunity to strike fiercely at Jalan's back. A sinister smile curled at the corner of his mouth. The first one. As one of the ancient three gods of the ancient god church, on par with Murmur, Qianma was the most elusive figure in the entire ancient god church. Very few knew his appearance or abilities. He was like a ghost, constantly wandering the world, invisibly reaping lives. Although the town ruins monument suppressed his realm to the Pool realm, with the extremely dangerous divine ruins, Qianma was confident he could kill anyone in this training camp in one strike, even members of the Nightfall team. His palm, filled with cold energy, slammed heavily into Jialan's back, but it felt like an egg hitting a rock, shattering into pieces. Qianma's expression stiffened. After knocking out a new recruit with a punch, Jialan slowly turned her head to look at Qianma behind her. Another fish that slipped through the net? Jialan muttered, grabbing Qianma by the collar, her right fist raised high, and she brought it crashing down onto Qianma's head. Chapter 819 Safe House. Qianmo felt a sudden darkness before his eyes, a sharp pain in his forehead, but thanks to his strong mental power and will he did not faint like the other recruits. He looked at Jialan, his eyes filled with confusion. How could this be possible? At this level no one should be able to withstand that blow, right? Qianmo refused to believe it. He swiftly extended his right hand, and another wave of extremely cold energy brewed in his palm, slamming fiercely towards Jialan's cheek. Jialan raised an eyebrow and caught Qianmo's wrist with her bare hand, a hint of anger flashing in her eyes. You actually want to slap me? Are kids these days this wild? With that, Jialan delivered another punch to Qianmo's head. This punch sent him crashing through the floor directly into the ground below. Amidst the billowing smoke, Qianmo, with his consciousness fading, struggled to get back up. Jialan lightly leaped in front of him, surprised, and said, 2 punches and you're still not out? Your head is so hard. That was the last thing Qianmo heard. Because when the third punch landed, he completely lost consciousness. Under the suppression of the town ruins monument, he only had the strength of the Pool realm, but one must know that Jialan, possessing the power of immortality, would not be affected by any external forces. Her strength remained at its peak. Knocking him down with 3 punches was already quite generous. Jialan scanned the surroundings and saw that all the recruits had fainted. Satisfied, she clapped her hands and let out a long breath. Wrap it up. Attention all recruits, attention all recruits. I am the new recruit Ding Chongfeng. The situation is urgent, so I'll keep it brief. All recruits, gather immediately in the auditorium. Remember, always keep yourselves hidden. Do not engage with anyone wearing a mask, and most importantly, do not go off alone. Do not go off alone. Do not go off alone. We, the Night Watchers and even the Great Xia, are experiencing an unprecedented life and death crisis. A voice suddenly echoed above the training camp, as if imbued with some mysterious power, reaching everyone's ears. An unprecedented crisis? The recruits wandering in other parts of the training camp were taken aback upon hearing this. What does that mean? I don't know, but it sounds urgent. What about the instructors? Why aren't they coming out to maintain order? By the way, I've been hearing screams from afar since just now. Something seems off. Should we go take a look? Sure. After hesitating for a moment, many recruits chose to follow the voice's instructions and headed towards the auditorium. Among the crowd, 3 members of the ancient god church exchanged glances and nodded slightly. Let's go, follow them. Puhaha. Old Chow, did you hear what they said? The entire Great Xia is experiencing a life and death crisis, ha! In a corner of the training camp, Bai Li Pangpang couldn't help but burst into laughter upon hearing this. Beside him, Chao Yuan rolled his eyes silently. What are you laughing at? When you were thrown into this environment back then, you probably looked just as pale with fear. No, back then he should have already started handing out Rolexes, begging for protection. Lin Chia, holding the handle of the white slasher knife, stepped out of the void with a smile. What nonsense are you talking? I still have the ability to protect myself. Right, back then you had more forbidden items than anyone else. So what if I had forbidden items? Forbidden items are also part of strength. Chia, is it over on your side? And Qingyu, sitting nearby, asked as Lin Chia arrived. Yeah, the atmosphere has been set up nicely. Lin Chia nodded, looking towards the auditorium, and slowly said, Next, it's time to see what Zhuang Gu and Jiang Er will perform. 10 minutes later. In the auditorium. The hall, which could accommodate 500 people, now had only a little over 100 people sitting around in disarray, their eyes blankly staring at the ceiling, as if they were sculptures lost in a daze. Of course, not everyone was like that. Ding Chongfeng, who had just finished speaking with all the recruits, stood up from his seat, glanced at his watch and frowned slightly. Su Yuan, what's the situation outside now? In the front row of the auditorium, a girl named Su Yuan slowly opened her eyes, turned to look at the auditorium's entrance and calmly said, "There are humanoid life forms approaching outside, 96 of them. No other life form fluctuations have been detected within a radius of 500 meters, and no one is following." 96 people? Ding Chongfeng raised an eyebrow. Their strength is intact with no personnel losses. It seems they were lucky enough not to encounter any enemies. Let them in. At the entrance of the auditorium, 6 recruits exchanged glances and nodded. The forbidden light surrounding their feet gradually dissipated, and at the same time, the 6 layers of protective shields tightly enveloping the entire auditorium also began to fade away, revealing a path for the new recruit team outside to enter the auditorium. As the door opened, the team of over 90 recruits walked into the auditorium, looking at their pale-faced companions around them, their faces filled with confusion. What happened? Weren't we supposed to compete with the Nightfall team? How did it turn into a great Xia crisis? One of the newly arrived recruits asked in confusion. Ding Chongfeng did not rush to answer but turned to Su Yuan and continued to ask, "Is there anyone else?" "No, wait a moment." Su Yuan frowned. 2 more stragglers are coming in. From the life fluctuations, it's a boy and a girl. Stragglers. Ding Chongfeng's expression became alert. "Don't worry, let me take a look." A tall boy beside him stood up. "Su Yuan, which direction are they in?" 8 o'clock direction. "Okay." The tall boy suddenly opened his eyes wide, a faint white light flickering in his gaze as his vision penetrated the walls, landing somewhere outside. Then he quickly took out paper and a pen from his backpack and began sketching rapidly. Soon Fang Mo and Li Jinjin's figures were perfectly captured on the paper. "There are people." Behind them, a bespectacled, refined man nodded. "That boy is in the dorm next to ours. I also recognize the girl." "Good, open the door." The auditorium's door opened and Fang Mo and Li Jinjin walked in, equally bewildered. "There's no one else," Su Yuan confirmed. "Only less than 300 people left." Ding Chongfeng scanned the auditorium and sighed helplessly. Under everyone's gaze, Ding Chongfeng stepped onto the stage in the center of the auditorium, holding a microphone and spoke in a deep voice. "I am Ding Chongfeng, the person who just spoke on the broadcast. The reason for gathering everyone here is twofold. First, to summarize the situations encountered by each team and analyze the circumstances. Second, to gather everyone together to prevent losses caused by going off alone. Rest assured, we have set up tight defenses around this auditorium. With just the strength of the Pool Realm, it is impossible to break in. This is a safe house." Chapter 820. The Great Master of the Fields is playing tactics. Ding Chongfeng stood on the stage, took a deep breath and continued, "Let me first explain the situation our team encountered. At that time, after we dispersed from the playground, we went straight to the special training base. There we encountered a strange man carrying a black coffin, who was one of the so-called masked team members we had seen earlier on the playground. When we discovered him, he was... Ding Chongfeng seemed to recall some terrifying scene and shivered. He was dissecting the instructor's corpse. Below the stage, everyone's expression changed dramatically. Fang Mo instinctively recalled the strange man she sensed from afar in the park when she heard the description of the man carrying a black coffin, and her brows furrowed. He was wearing a deep red cloak stained with blood, standing in front of the dissection table. Sinister vines grew from the muscles on his back, each vine wrapped around a small knife, crazily cutting into the corpse, blood and chunks of flesh falling everywhere, and he even had a smile on his lips. When we saw him, he happened to turn around and the black coffin behind him opened automatically, revealing a pale female corpse frozen in ice, staring straight at us. Hearing this description, the many new recruits in the auditorium felt their scalps tingle, their faces turning pale. I don't know what you all think, but I can assure you, that is definitely not how a night watchman should look. He is definitely not a good person. Ding Chongfeng suppressed the fear in his heart and continued, "I believe what expert Shin said. He was swapped in and infiltrated the training camp, a member of the ancient God Church." Looking at the other new recruits who appeared ashen and terrified, Li Jinjin tilted her head, several large question marks floating above her head. What are you all talking about? While I agree with you that he doesn't seem like a good person, he is indeed a member of the Nightfall team. Li Jinjin clearly remembered that just a couple of days ago, they had happily sat together with the members of Team 006, drinking and eating. How did it turn into the ancient god church in your mouths? What on earth did you all experience? Li Jinjin hesitated for a moment, just about to say something when a ghostly girl in a white dress suddenly flew out from the ground beneath her feet, silently crashing into her body. Since they were the last to enter the auditorium and were seated on the outer edge, everyone was immersed in fear and didn't notice this at all. Li Jinjin's body trembled, but she quickly regained her composure. A faint smile appeared at the corners of her mouth. At the same time, some other new recruits sitting in their seats also stood up. I agree. They are definitely not good people. One person spoke with a hint of fear. We found a demon covered in black flames, grinning with a knife on the small path behind the cafeteria. You didn't hear that laughter. It was particularly creepy. And that perverted man in the dormitory building who keeps a spider monster, that spider is huge. It's obvious it has eaten many people. He has already killed over a dozen instructors and hung our companions on the spider web. The scene was just too bloody. Everyone began to speak one after another, and in just a moment, an utterly evil and heartless demon organization appeared in everyone's minds, as if they would rush into the auditorium at any moment, grinning and tearing everyone to pieces. The new recruits who had never seen Lin Chia and the others were dumbfounded. So, the situation is already this dire. Fang Yimo was equally bewildered. No, when the Nightfall team appeared just now, she did indeed sense that extremely familiar aura. The man wearing the Sun Wukong mask should be Lin Chia. Could it be that only some enemies infiltrated the Nightfall team and after they dispersed they teamed up to kill Lin Chia? The moment this thought surged in her mind, Fang Mo's body shook, and her hands unconsciously clenched tightly. Of course, she had no idea that the perverted man who keeps a spider monster mentioned by others was Lin Chia himself. Everyone, please calm down. On stage, Ding Chongfeng's expression was extremely serious. I have a rough understanding of the situations you encountered. Although I already have some guesses in my mind, I actually still lack some information. Fortunately, among us there is a knowledgeable expert. Ding Chongfeng turned his gaze to the front row and respectfully said, Brother Shin, please come up and give us a brief analysis. Everyone followed his gaze and saw a young man stand up from his seat, his expression equally grave. All right, I'll give a brief analysis. Shin Qingzhu walked onto the stage, his brow slightly furrowed as if he was wary yet contemplative. At that moment, the auditorium, which had been somewhat noisy, suddenly fell silent, all the new recruits eagerly watching Shin Qingzhu, waiting for his analysis. I was initially a bit uncertain, but after hearing your descriptions, I can basically confirm that the Nightfall team has been swapped by the ancient god church. Shin Qingzhu spoke with utmost seriousness. Your descriptions align closely with what I know about the ancient god church's style. They are symbols of evil and darkness. Wherever they go, living beings suffer. Generally speaking, they do not act lightly, but once they do, it will lead to earth-shattering events. Perhaps you know about the Tsongnan Great Robbery from over a decade ago? Behind that incident they also had a hand. Upon hearing the words, Tsongnan Great Robbery, most of the crowd looked confused, with only a few showing expressions of realization and starting to discuss among themselves. Among them, 3 members of the ancient god church exchanged glances, their faces lighting up with joy. So it turns out Lord Qianma disguised himself as the Nightfall team and infiltrated, a young recruit exclaimed excitedly, as expected of Lord Qianma to think of such a method. Indeed, as expected of Lord Qianma. I understand the reasoning, but isn't Lord Qianma just one person? From what they said, it sounds like there are 3 people from the ancient god church. Hee, that's where your foolishness lies. The young recruit grinned. Lord Qianma has always been incredibly mysterious. How do you know he doesn't have the ability to create clones? Besides, even if he is just one person, as long as he can change positions and appearances in a short time, it can create the illusion of 3 different invaders. This is Lord Qianma playing tactics. The other 2 suddenly understood. Turns out it really is the ancient god church. Ding Chongfeng pondered. Brother Shin, what do you think their purpose is in doing this? Their purpose is actually quite simple. Shen Qingzhu replied calmly, the ancient god church represents the will of the foreign evil gods. Who do you think is the greatest enemy of the current Great Xia? The new recruits exchanged glances and someone answered, the foreign gods. Chapter 821. I come from the ancient god church. That's right. It's the outer gods. If the outer gods want to break through the Great Xia, they must first breach the defenses set up by the Night Watchers at the border, which is the War Pass. Do you know why the War Pass has not been fully utilized until now? Because there are too few Night Watchers. The number of Night Watchers is simply insufficient to guard each city while also sending people to defend the pass. So the Night Watchers have chosen to recruit more by bringing in new soldiers to solve the manpower shortage. I understand now. Ding Chongfeng suddenly realized, their target isn't this training camp, but us new recruits in the camp? Shen Qingzhu glanced at him, her eyes showing a hint of approval. Following Shen Qingzhu's line of thought, Ding Chongfeng continued, whether our more than 600 new recruits can supplement the Night Watchers is a crucial part of this war. If we die, the personnel flow in Great Xia will experience a significant break. Once this break occurs, Great Xia will have no one to rely on, and the combat power of those at the front lines, the war passes, will be greatly diminished, allowing the outer gods to invade. This is indeed a crisis sweeping through Great Xia. As he analyzed this, everyone in the auditorium understood. So that's how it is. Truly worthy of the ancient god church. Behind this matter, there is such a large scheme. Thinking about it deeply is terrifying. While everyone was eagerly discussing, Shen Qingzhu spoke again. Then if the ancient god church wants to infiltrate this training camp and eliminate us new recruits, relying on brute force to attack from the outside definitely won't work. Although the training camp is located in the suburbs, this is still the capital city, guarded by Team 006 and the Night Watchers headquarters. If they make a big commotion by attacking from the outside, it will alert a large number of high-level combatants, and this surprise attack will inevitably end in failure. So the best approach is to impersonate the Nightfall team and blend into the training camp. First, the entire Nightfall team wears masks and rarely shows their true faces, making it difficult to be recognized after impersonation. Second, in past training camps, it has become a tradition for new recruits to undergo a preliminary assessment on their first day. After the instructors activate the Townstone tablet, the combat power of the entire training camp will be lowered to below the pool realm, which means the instructors will lose their original combat power. With their disguises, as long as they launch a surprise attack after the assessment, the instructors, being of the same realm, will be very easy targets. Once all the instructors are sacrificed, the entire training camp will fall into their hands. After hearing Shen Qingzhu's analysis, all the new recruits were convinced by her reasoning, with some even unable to resist applauding. Wow, you make a lot of sense. Ding Chongfeng couldn't help but exclaim, but then a look of confusion crossed his face. But there's one thing I don't quite understand. If according to your reasoning the ancient god church wants to attack the training camp, wouldn't it be easier to disguise themselves as new recruits and blend in? Could there be members of the ancient god church among us new recruits? Upon hearing this, Shen Qingzhu froze in place. Seeing Shen Qingzhu stunned, Ding Chongfeng thought she didn't understand and earnestly continued his analysis. Look, impersonating the Nightfall team requires ensuring that one's strength meets the standards of a special team while also disguising oneself in front of everyone. Isn't that too risky? But if they disguise themselves as new recruits, it would be different. This time, the Night Watchers are expanding their recruitment with over 600 new recruits. It shouldn't be easy to thoroughly vet everyone's background, right? If it were me, I would choose to disguise myself as a new recruit to infiltrate the training camp, and then wait for the preliminary assessment when everyone's realms are suppressed, before suddenly launching an attack, taking out the instructors and seizing the training camp. Ding Chongfeng clapped his hands. See, isn't this more reasonable? Shen Qingzhu fell into deep thought. Of course, I'm not saying your reasoning is wrong. I just think that disguising as the Nightfall team isn't the optimal solution. Of course, it doesn't rule out the possibility that both sides could have infiltrators. Ding Chongfeng thought Shen Qingzhu was upset that he had stolen her thunder and quickly explained. Below the stage, the three members of the ancient god church disguised as new recruits were simultaneously dumbfounded. What's going on? The young recruit said uncertainly, Have we been exposed? No, not yet. They are just speculating. But this speculation is too accurate, right? How did that expert Shin analyze our motives so thoroughly? It's as if he participated in our actions. Is it possible that this expert Shin is actually one of Lord Qianma's incarnations? He wants to use this method to divert everyone's attention to the fake Nightfall team, thereby dispersing everyone's vigilance against the new recruits and creating an opportunity for us to act. The female recruit's speculation immediately plunged the other two church members into thought. What you said seems to make sense. Otherwise, it wouldn't explain his almost prophetic deductions. How could a new recruit come in and smear our ancient god church right from the start? He knows so much about us. But if that's the case, doesn't it mean there are too many incarnations of Lord Qianma? Including those 3 fake Nightfall members they mentioned, this is already the 4th suspected incarnation of Lord Qianma. Just as the 3 were puzzled, a chilling, sinister laugh echoed from below the stage. Hee hee hee. In the quiet auditorium, this cold laughter was particularly jarring, causing all the new recruits to turn their heads toward the source of the sound, their brows slightly furrowing. The one laughing coldly was Li Jinjin, who had just been let in from outside. Li Jinjin, dressed in new recruit attire, stood among the crowd, her cold gaze sweeping over the surrounding new recruits, a mocking smile curling at the corners of her mouth. Li Jinjin. Beside her, Fang Mo's brow furrowed tightly. What are you doing, huh? Fang Mo sniffed the air as if sensing something, took a half-step back, drew a short knife and assumed a combat-ready stance, her eyes filled with seriousness. You are not Li Jinjin. Who are you? Fang Mo whispered coldly, gripping her knife. Who am I? Under Jiang Er's control, Li Jinjin narrowed her eyes slightly, and with the subtle change in the surrounding magnetic field, she exuded a strange, cold aura. I come from the ancient god church. Upon hearing this, the hearts of all the new recruits present sank simultaneously. The ancient god church. It really is the ancient god church. All of expert Shin's speculations were correct. Meanwhile, the 3 members of the ancient god church stared blankly. Chapter 822, The Terrifying Nature of Qianmo Master. Are you also from the ancient god church? Could it be that you are one of Lord Qianma's incarnations? At this moment, the 3 members of the ancient god church were completely bewildered. This was the 5th suspected existence of Lord Qianma. What's going on? Why does it feel like the whole world is filled with people from our ancient god church? Is Lord Qianma truly this terrifying? Indeed, it's you. On the stage, Shin Qingzhu coldly asked, What exactly is your purpose? Purpose? Haven't you all guessed it already? Li Jinjin spoke softly. Although you've figured out our plan and motives clearly, so what? All the instructors have been killed, and now in this training camp, there are only you bunch of rabble left. If I go and close the town ruins monument now, restoring all my strength, I could crush you all with a single finger. I see. Your next target is the town ruins monument. Shin Qingzhu exclaimed in shock. I should have thought of that. After all the instructors are dead, you are the ones with the highest cultivation in this training camp. Once you close the town ruins monument, you will regain all your strength, and at that point we will definitely not be your match, only facing the fate of being ruthlessly slaughtered. Hearing this, the faces of the many new recruits turned pale. So this was the plan of the ancient god church. Truly insidious and vicious. Just as Li Jinjin said, once the suppression effect of the town ruins monument is lifted, these new recruits would be no different from ants in front of the members of the ancient god church. Perhaps this was their last chance to survive. We won't let you close the town ruins monument so easily. On the stage, Ding Chongfeng spoke with clenched fists. The effect of the town ruins monument is still active, and there are only a few of you. We still have nearly 300 people. The outcome is still uncertain. Ha ha ha. Li Jinjin laughed loudly. More than 300? Just a bunch of timid mice who can only shrink back in their holes after being scared. What can you achieve? Truly laughable. Li Jinjin stomped her feet on the ground, directly crashing through the door, gradually disappearing from everyone's sight. Tremble and wait for death to arrive, cowards. Her eerie voice echoed in the ears of all the new recruits in the hall, their faces turning ashen. Only 3 people were overjoyed. Wonderful. Lord Qianma's move is truly brilliant. The thin new recruit's eyes sparkled. One person silently killed all the instructors and then went to close the town ruins monument. The situation is completely in our hands now. Truly worthy of Lord Qianmo, accomplishing what the three of us could not. No wonder Lord Qianmo wanted to act separately from us. He probably thought we would hold him back. I actually think Lord Qianmo could have discussed this with us in advance. It must be exhausting for him to play so many roles alone. Yeah. The three members of the ancient god church sighed repeatedly. On the stage, Shen Qingzhu and Ding Chongfeng had extremely serious expressions. Everyone, I'm sure you all saw what just happened. Shen Qingzhu was about to incite the emotions of the new recruits when Ding Chongfeng spoke up first, his tone extremely serious. This is our new recruits, our night watchmen, our great Xia, our last chance. If the ancient god church closes the town ruins monument, none of you will be able to leave this training camp alive, and Great Xia will also face utter destruction. I know everyone is afraid of death and dares not face such a terrifying enemy, but we have no choice now. Not only for our own safety but also for our duty. Although we are still new recruits of the Night Watchman, we bear the future of Great Xia on our shoulders. Everyone please join me, to fight for ourselves and for the future of Great Xia. Ding Chongfeng's voice was powerful and resonant. Combined with his determined expression, it was highly infectious. The expressions of the many new recruits below became serious, and their eyes ignited with a fighting spirit. If we don't fight, we can only wait to die. Let's go for it. What nonsense, ancient god church. We have over 300 brothers, why should we fear these few mice? Brothers, if we can survive this calamity together, we will be brothers who have fought for our lives. I, Zhang Godin, am willing to swear brotherhood with you all. If we can get through this, it would be a great achievement, right? Then we'll be truly glorious. Bro, even though this is our first meeting, if I sacrifice this time, remember to send the letter at the bottom of my suitcase to Arya. Her address is. Don't say that, good brother. We will definitely win. Shen Qingzhu stared blankly at Ding Chongfeng, then at the new recruits whose fighting spirit had reached its peak, her mouth slightly agape. Wow, this kid's ability to incite emotions is quite impressive. It really saved her a lot of effort. Under Ding Chongfeng's encouragement, all the new recruits surged out of the hall with high spirits, rushing towards the playground at night with knives in hand, their eyes shining with unprecedented determination, like a group of soldiers ready to risk their lives in a desperate situation. In the crowd, Shen Qingzhu quietly stepped aside while they weren't paying attention and picked up her earpiece, speaking softly. Chia, are you listening? Yes, Shuagu, how's it going on your side? The effect is better than expected. Shen Qingzhu paused, but the more I think about it while analyzing on stage, the more I feel something is off. Do you think the ancient god church might have really sent someone to infiltrate the new recruits? They wouldn't miss such a good opportunity. On the other end of the earpiece, Lin Chia was silent for a moment before replying. I understand. We will test it out as well. If we can catch a few big fish, it would be an unexpected gain. Lin Chia put away the earpiece and turned to look at the people behind him, deep in thought. The ancient god church, huh? Bai Li Pang scratched his head. Could it be such a coincidence? We just happened to disguise ourselves as the ancient god church, and they just happened to have people mixed in with the new recruits. But the motive is indeed valid, Chao Yuan agreed. Who wrote the script? It was me. And Qingyu raised her hand. I wrote this logically coherent script according to Chia's request, and the motives and purposes in it were indeed written from the perspective of the ancient god church. However, the most suitable way was to disguise as new recruits to infiltrate the training camp, but considering our identities, I made some slight adjustments. So, theoretically, it is indeed possible that the ancient god church sent someone to infiltrate the new recruits. Lin Chia pondered.